Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. His name is Ruben Gomez. Mr. Ruben, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Tammy, and you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Ruben. Firstly, you are a coach. You do coach people. Can you please, sir, Mr. Ruben, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr. Ruben?
I would consider myself more than a coach, a guide. I come with a background in neuroscience, circadian rhythms, ancient Eastern philosophy, and my focus is into helping people understand how the environment shapes the way that we think, the way we feel, or energy levels, or moods. And as this is cyclical and changes throughout the year, especially for people that live in places that experience the four seasons, it is extremely important for us to understand so that we can line up with the energy of the season, of the moment, and we can create a routine specifically for that moment. So I help people optimize their routines to perform a peak performance and align themselves and feel great throughout the year.
That's very great. Thank you so much, Mr. Ruben. And I would like to get to the point of your book. If you've written any book, Mr. Ruben, have you written any book, Mr. Ruben, or are you planning to write any book in the coming future, Mr. Ruben?
We're going to release the book of Living in Harmony with the Seasons, and specifically in the winter. How to live in harmony with the winter. We're going to release that on the next autumn. That's the next fall here in the United States. And it is related to everything that I have learned from neuroscience, circadian rhythms, and Eastern philosophy on how to have a better relationship and have a great winter experience because lots of people tend to struggle with that.
I completely agree, Mr. Ruben. It's definitely not easy in the winter. During the winter, there are a lot of I think there are a lot of cardigan, a lot of things someone must use to personally use to protect him or herself. I would like to dive to that point, Mr. Ruben, because we do know that winter is a season. It is a time in the year that everything changes in the community. I would like to ask Mr. Ruben, for those who might not understand, how can you explain how living in harmony during the winter seems to look like, and how can you just expatiate on that, Mr. Ruben?
There is a lot of migration happening throughout the world. So if you look at it from the perspective that you might have grown up in a place that sees the same temperature and the same sun exposure throughout the whole year, but then all of a sudden you move to a place, it might be Europe, it might be North America. And within these regions, we experience four seasons. What we tend to understand as seasons is temperature, but in reality, the biggest change that we experience is the lighting cycle. Where I live in the wintertime, it gets dark by 4:30, and in the summertime, it gets dark by 9:30. That is a 6 hours difference on the length of the day. And when you start understanding how that affects the way that you feel energized or the way that you feel motivated, then you start realizing what there is such an epidemic in mental health conditions like seasonal affective disorder. People tend to call them the winter blues. People feel like they don't have energy, they don't have motivation, they don't want to do. And the reality is that they cannot do the same things that they do in the summer. So how can we recognize that pattern and use it for our advantage? Well, the key is by becoming aware. And that's where we use neuroscience to explain how our brain produces chemicals differently throughout the year. And then how can we create a routine that is specific for that season? Not a routine that is just good enough for the whole year. Because again, remember that the variations are very drastic throughout the year. So that's where I come in place and help you understand why it's important and more importantly, how to do it.
It's definitely not easy, Mr. Ruben. Winter is definitely not easy, and it's the time of the season. Thank you so much, Mr. Ruben. And I would also like to dive to the point of challenges, Mr. Ruben. There will definitely, during that winter time, there will definitely be challenges, and how one can try his or her best to overcome those challenges during those winter time. How do you think someone can? What challenges do you think someone really face during those winter time when living in harmony, and how do you think one can overcome it, Mr. Ruben?
Well, first of all, you wake up and it's dark. And then you go to work and you come back from work and it's dark. Lots of people, a big percentage of the population, don't really see the sunlight as much throughout the winter time. That has an effect in our circadian rhythm. Also, we are exposed to artificial light throughout the day. Then that creates a negative loop of disruption of our natural being. We are being we need the sunlight to produce hormones and neurotransmitters, and we're not getting it. So the biggest challenge is that the environment changes, and most people fail to recognize what to do in relation to the changes that they can make so that they can bring themselves to alignment. Another issue is that in our today's DNA, productivity has to be consistent. When we don't really look into the energies of the season and acknowledge that there are certain seasons like the winter where rest becomes a priority, that will give us energy on the most productive times of the year, like the spring and the summer. When you don't realize that life is not linear and there is some very drastic ups and downs that you need to learn how to wave yourself into, then we suffer from what many people call a burnout. Like we are burning out, we are crashing, we're experiencing, hey, I need to take a month off, a week off. Like, I don't know what's happening with me. Those are mental challenges, and they're also physical challenges when they get to a high degree. So, the biggest challenge is really understanding what it's like, that environment is going to change, and creating a routine that will use that for your benefit.
And that's also dive into the point of people, certain type of people who suffer the most during this time. We do know, I'm one of a black person. The condition I face in my country is not really winter; it's more of rainy season and more of sunshine. And if someone like me is in that type of position, I do not know how the suffering is going to differ from either a black person or an Hispanic person or a white person. Who do you think suffer the most when it comes to this winter season, Mr. Ruben?
There is biological factors that we are born with, and like you're saying, the pigmentation in your skin, and more importantly, what you are used to. So the circadian rhythm is in every cell of your body. Before you're even born, you're being codified to that. So when you're moving from that environment to a different environment, it's really important to have somebody to tell you how that works, what you should expect, what are the pros and cons, what are the opportunities and the challenges, so that you can have a good life. Because as you know, there's a lot of migration happening, and not the only ones that suffer this are not people migrating. Even Caucasians that their families have grown and have been raised in this same environment, they fail to be aware and conscious of those environmental changes. And the key here is that behavior will align with your thinking, and will also align with your feeling. So your feeling, your thinking, and your behavior has to be in alignment. So if your behaviors are negative, well, you're going to start thinking negatively, and then you're going to start feeling negatively. So we work from a awareness perspective, but then very quickly we move into our behaviors. So we look at the most important behaviors from a neuroscience perspective, like is sleeping, exercising, connection with nature, connection and nurturing relationships with loved ones, nutrition, and novelty. And we make sure that our routine is customized for that season so that you get the benefits of every single behavior, which in turn are going to align with your thinking. You're going to start thinking positively. Then in turn, you're going to start feeling positively.
That's very, very lovely, Mr. Ruben. Thank you so much, sir. And that's we also personally dive into the point of um I think that's dive into the point of success stories. There could be success stories when it comes to winter and when it comes to living in harmony in this type of situation of winter. What success story do you think from your personal experience when it comes to winter have you personally find very, very inspiring, Mr. Ruben?
I have I have success stories from friends and clients that I have coached through it, but I'm gonna talk to you about my success story. The reason that I am doing this full time, the reason that this has become my life purpose, and it's because I moved from Venezuela to the United States in 2010, and I suffer from what we call seasonal affective disorder, which is essentially a disruption between my ideal state, my desires, and where I really was, which I was on a complete chaos essentially. For 5 years, I lived this way. I didn't know anything. There was no content out there. There was nothing that could guide me towards understanding how the seasons truly affect you. So after I realized that, oh, I have the winter blues because my wife told me, then I started doing research. There was very little information out there, but there was enough information that over a decade that I have committed myself to this, I have been able to retire from my profession, from being a real estate investor, and now I'm dedicating my life purpose to this. So I went from being miserable during the winter and all throughout the year, living in the ups and downs, to now being harmony and actually using the winters as like the best time of the year for me to achieve and to work on my personal development and to work in my physique, into work into my spirituality, to work into many things because there are less distractions. And it really sets the tone for the whole year.
I completely agree. That was a very, very, very big success story. I'm so happy for you today, Mr. Ruben. And I would like to also dive to the point of shifts, because when we have different seasons in the year, Mr. Ruben, and we also know that there might be some habits someone do during the summer or during the sunny time, that if someone wants to implement that type of habit or routine into the winter time, it seems more difficult. I would like to ask if there is any shift like that, any daily shift or any daily routine you believe someone can try to adjust when it comes to the winter time, when living in Amon, Mr. Ruben.
First of all, the whole point of what we're doing from a practical perspective is to achieve more with less effort. Because as you mentioned, habits become difficult in the winter time. And it's because you're trying to implement something that has worked for you in the summertime, but it's very difficult to do in the wintertime because of the lighting cycles. Let me give you an example. If you want to have a habit of going to sleep at a good time, which is a great habit for everybody to have, is the basics of well-being. If you think that you can go to sleep by 9 or 10 p.m. every single day throughout the year, you're going to fail. And this is why. Where I live, it gets dark by 4:30 in the winter time. It's a lot easier for me to go to sleep by, let's say, 9 p.m. in the winter because our brain sees the signal of the sun going down and it start creating melatonin, the sleeping hormone. So I can go to sleep by 9 p.m. That's very easy. And then, okay, that triggers my next habit, which is exercising. Okay, I wake up and I go to the gym and I exercise. So now we have two good behaviors that are working for me in the winter time. But what happens once we turn into spring? Once daylight savings time switch and we lose or gain an hour? What happens when we are in the middle of the summer and it gets dark by 9:30? Now, I cannot go to sleep by 10 because I haven't had enough time between the sunset and the amount of melatonin that I have to create in my brain to feel sleepy. So then all of a sudden, I can't go to sleep early. So I'm going to sleep, let's say, 11 o'clock. Well, I feel like I'm failing, right? Because I'm not doing what I commit to. But then the worst part is that I'm not waking up early either, right? Because we want to sleep 8 hours, we want to feel refreshed. So since I'm not waking up early either, I'm also not going to work out either, remember? So then the negative thinking starts to happen. I'm a failure. I'm not committed enough to my well-being. I'm not going to sleep early. I'm not going to the gym. That also triggers into I'm sleeping poorly. I'm gaining weight. Whatever your goals are all triggering and they start falling one at a time. Instead of that, you have to be aware of those lighting cycles and you create routines specific to every season. So what looks good in the winter doesn't work in the summer. So you have to adapt. So in short, to say what is a great routine in the winter? Well, go to sleep early, wake up early and work out, take care of your nutrition, And then make sure that you have outdoor connection because it's very inconvenient to get outside when it's very cold. So you have to actually be committed to that. You have to be committed to nurturing loving relationships because in the winter we tend to isolate ourselves. Since we're not going outside as much, we're not socializing as much. So one of the things that we look when we are creating our seasonal routine is the lighting exposure cycle, at what time the sunset is happening and at what time the sunrise is happening. But also we look at the social dynamics of the season because the summertime brings a lot of social interaction, the same than the fall time during the holidays, Christmas. But then there is a drop in the winter time, and people tend to isolate and get depressed. So we want to make sure that in our weekly schedule, in the routine that we are creating, we have one appointment that we're going to commit to have a time of quality time with a loved one. It can be your significant other, it can be your best friend, it can be a group of believers that get together every single week. So the key is to recognize what are the dysfunctions of that week and balance them again with the behaviors that we know are positive from a neurological perspective.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ruben. Thank you so much for the insight, Mr. Ruben. And I would like to also dive to the point of lessons. As your experience since I remember 2010, you've been in this place, it has definitely been a very long journey. And there will definitely be huge lessons you've learned during this winter time, even living in harmony, huge lessons. If you can just, tell the audience a little, like, what lessons you think you've learned from your experience, Mr. Ruben?
Paying attention to the social environments is huge. Paying attention to the time the sunset happens and the sunrise happens, those are like the basis of it. What that does is that it helps you to align yourself with your circadian rhythm, which essentially is human biology, is your natural patterns of as a human. It's in your biology, it's in every single cell of your body. So understanding that to a small degree to making sure that you are not getting too out of line. Because once it turns dark, we have the tendency to turn all the lights, to be on our phones, and then we don't go to sleep early. So then essentially we're not living in harmony, and there is all sorts of long-term diseases that come from there and short-term negative impacts. So the lesson learned here is that every season has an energy. Every single energy of every single season has a use. In the winter, we tend to go inwards, and it draws us inside of us to look at our results, to plan ahead, to measure what we did right or wrong, and basically reconnect to our purpose. Like, what is that we want to do, not just this year, but in our life, but also in this year. So honoring every single seasonal energy has the greatest impact in your life so you can experience consistent growth because it's a cycle. And if you imagine a vortex, the picture of a vortex that keeps getting like a hurricane, it starts small, but it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we try to do every time that we acknowledge and honor every seasonal energy. We get a little bigger and we keep expanding and expanding and expanding. And all of a sudden, we look back and we say, wow, I'm very harmonious. I'm a force to be reckoned with. I have achieved so much. And more importantly, I enjoy the journey. It's like I can't believe that I could achieve all the things that I wanted and I could enjoy my life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ruben, for this. Thank you so much for the insight, Mr. Ruben. And there is a question I used to normally ask during the end of the show, Mr. Ruben. From the ancestors, from the forefathers, there are a lot of things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mr. Ruben, what do you think that thing would be, Mr. Ruben?
I will definitely go back. Obviously, I would like to bring Jesus, but with the conversation that we're having, I will be bringing Lao Tzu, which is a ancient Eastern philosopher. He's very into Taoism, and he's one of the founders of what I now use as a primordial, like a primary cornerstone of our movement, which is ancient Chinese traditional medicine. They absolutely know and understand what it's like to feel the energy and get into it. Be like the river, like the water in the river, flow with it. And I would love to bring them back and learn from their lessons because everything that we're discovering in science today has already been proven. And we have already been having that blueprint for millennials. All we're doing right now is looking at it from a scientific perspective and realizing, wow, this is true, this exists.
I completely agree. There are a lot of things that we are just seeing the real face, and we're just seeing the real image of it that this really exists. This really, wow, it's just unimaginable. And it's just continue. And I want to also sincerely thank you, Mr. Ruben, for the time, for the opportunity on speaking on this living in harmony during the winter season. A lot of people do not know what to prepare about, not to even put into action when they are going to the point of the winter. And winter doesn't even have mercy. It's just going to come and come and come, and everywhere is going to look very very unimaginable. I want to continue to thank you, and thank you so much for the time and the opportunity you've given to me today and the audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm going to close with this one thing, as you mentioned. This is cyclical. The winter will continue to come. And that's when you realize that this is cyclical, it's not wasted effort. It's an investment on yourself for the long term because it's going to continue to repeat itself, not just the winter, the spring, the summer, and the fall. Every single season, if you learn how to align yourself with it, you're going to achieve more with less effort.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ruben. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Ruben. Bye bye.
You're welcome, Tammy. Bye.